Welcome to this week's look at the state of the New York City real estate market, where I take a look at the luxury market, the Manhattan market, and the Brooklyn market. I do it because I want you to be informed. It never hurts when you're a consumer to be informed. Welcome to this week's look at the state of the New York City real estate market. We're going to be looking at what happened last week, November 7th to the 14th, what happened in the luxury market, what happened in the Manhattan market, and what happened in the Brooklyn market. As always, feel free to post your questions below. I'm happy to answer questions that you have about anything in this report or anything about what's going on in the New York City market. Let's get started. There were 24 contracts signed last week for properties that were priced at $4 million and above, and that is 10 more than the previous week. What's also pretty interesting is that 7 of those contracts were for properties that were priced at $10 million and above. The last time that happened where we saw that many trophy properties signed in 1 week was the week of May 9th. So pretty nice recovery on the luxury market for last week. Let's break it down. We're going to start by looking at the number 1 contract for last week. It was a townhouse at 464 Greenwich Street. It was asking $29.9 million. It was listed a year ago. It is a former 1892 coffee roasting plant. It was transformed into a single house by fashion mogul Mickey Drexler, who purchased the building for $5.5 million in 2008. He then commissioned famed French architect Thierry Despont to oversee the massive renovation. The facade of the 24-foot wide red brick house has retained the coffee company's original sign, which is etched above the front door, and the home has 9,000 square feet, including 5 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, and 2 powder rooms. It has a 1,500 square foot living room, a gym, a sauna, a large rooftop terrace, and a commercial-sized elevator. The number 2 contract was 113 East 90th Street. It was asking $27 million. It was listed at the end of September. It is a former firehouse with a landscape garden and a separate carriage house in the back. The 4-story, 25-foot wide house has over 5,600 square feet. It includes 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and 2 powder rooms. It also has 3 fireplaces, a 3,000-bottle wine cellar, and a double-height ceiling in the entrance. One thing to note, it does not have an elevator. The seller purchased the house for $9.875 million in 2011 and then renovated it. So now we're going to take a look at the statistics for last week. As I mentioned, there were 24 contracts signed last week, 10 more than the previous week, and the total weekly asking price sales volume doubled from last week to $219,070,990. The average asking price, $9,127,958. The median asking price, $5,977,995. The average discount from original ask to last asking price, 9%. Average days on the market is 668. If you look at the number 2 contract, that moved very quickly. It was only listed at the end of September, whereas the number 1 contract for the house at 464 Greenwich Street was listed a year ago. So you can see where these luxury properties really are all over the map. Sometimes they move very quickly and sometimes they take a little while to sell. Okay, that's it for the luxury market. As always, feel free to share these reports with anyone that you think it might benefit. If you know somebody who's trying to make a real estate decision in the New York City market, this kind of information could be very helpful to them. Let's take a look at what happened last week in Manhattan. The 24 contracts signed last week, 10 more than the previous week. The 7 of those contracts were for properties that were priced at $10 million and above. The last time that happened was the week of May 9th. It was 7 more than the previous week. What's also pretty interesting is that 7 of those contracts were for properties that were priced at $10 million and above. The last time that happened was the week of May 9th. So pretty nice recovery on the luxury market for last week. Let's take a look at what happened last week in Manhattan. Okay, so what happened last week in Manhattan? We're going to start as we always do with the 1 week look, then we'll look at the 1 month overview to see what happened with the changes in the supply and the demand, and whether we are still in a buyer's market or whether we may be back in neutral territory. We're going to take a look at that right now. So the supply for last week, it was 283. That is up 5.2%. The contract signed 165. That is down a little over 7%. Off-market properties 215. That's also down almost 13%. We continue to be in a buyer's market. The kind of supply that we're seeing is pretty consistent with what goes on this time of year. Let's call it a seasonal shift in supply, and one could kind of say the same thing about the demand as well. Off-market properties, we've talked about this, that if sellers feel like they cannot make a deal that works for them in this market, they're pulling their properties off the market and they're going to wait this one out. They're either going to rent out their properties or they are just waiting to see what happens in the coming months. Now let's take a look at the 1 month view. So the monthly supply, 1,477, that is down almost 27%. Again, we would expect to see this from a seasonal perspective. The contract signed, 815, that is up almost 42%. Nice to see that bit of a bounce in the contract activity. We were hoping to see some improvement on that, and we did see it for the month. Still a little short of where we would want, still a little short of where we were last year, but we'll take it for now. Off market up almost 86%, 984. So again, we are in a buyer's market in Manhattan. At least from a negotiability standpoint, we are still waiting for some of the data to come in to know exactly how it's affecting prices, this shift in the market. What we can say is that what we know is we're probably down about 7 to 10% from the high of the market over this last year. If we take a look at the supply, you can see this chart in terms of how it tracks from a seasonal standpoint. So we are seeing the inventory ticking down a bit, which we would expect to see this time of year. The demand, we are still kind of resetting, and we won't know too much more about that until we get through the rest of this fall market. But it does seem to be heading towards 2019-2020 levels, and we will continue to keep an eye on the demand. Contract signed essentially flat on this last week, and given that we have some holidays coming up, we will likely continue to see some quiet times ahead as far as signed contracts. Here are those detailed charts that I like to share with you that really shows the breakdown for the supply, the pending sales, how many days on average on the market, monthly contract activity, price per square foot, median sale price, et cetera, et cetera. It's helpful to have this information. It is still a kind of these are averages, but I believe that they are still helpful if you're tracking what's going on in the Manhattan market. If you look at the market pulse chart, you will see that we are kind of holding steady. We've dropped into buyer's market. As you can see at the end of the chart, you can also see that we're just kind of hovering there, at least for the moment. So we're going to continue to keep an eye on this and see where it goes from there. That is it for the Manhattan market. Let's take a look at what happened last week in Brooklyn. What happened last week in Brooklyn? We're going to start with the 1 week market ticker chart, and we're going to take a look at the supply, contract signed, off market, and where the market pulse is telling us we're at in terms of what kind of market we're in. The supply is, for last week, the change was about a little over 10%, 166 properties on the market, contracts signed 110, that's down almost 26%. Off-market properties 88, down almost 38%. Brooklyn continues to hold in a neutral market. We're going to take a look a little deeper now. We're going to take a look at the 1 month view, and then we're going to get into the more detailed charts, and then it will help kind of frame why Brooklyn is faring a little differently than Manhattan. If you look at the 1 month chart, the supply is 774. That's down almost 23%. Contract signed 538, up almost 21% for the month. Off-market properties 381, up a little over 12%. Again, we continue to be in this neutral market. If we look at the market pulse chart, you will see how this is different than in Manhattan. In Manhattan, if you recall, the chart showed a decline over September, October. What we're starting to see, we see the same thing in Brooklyn, but what we're also starting to see is now in these early-ish days of November, we're starting to see this chart moving back up. And last week, I mentioned that buyers should be keeping a very, very close eye on what is going on. If you're looking to try to get something done, pay attention to what is going on with this demand and the supply. You can see in Brooklyn, it's starting to tick back up. Hard to know if it's going to stay like this, but this is now the second week in a row we're seeing this slight uptick. We may have gone through the correction in Brooklyn and maybe kind of shifting back upward again. Continue to keep an eye on this. Overall, though, it really is looking like Brooklyn is the stronger of the two markets between Manhattan and Brooklyn. That may be something that buyers and sellers want to keep in mind if you're making decisions right now about either buying something or putting something on the market, or you have something is for sale on the market and you're not moving and you're kind of wondering why that might be. Here are the detailed charts: the supply, the pending sales, the demand, the price per square foot, etc. Let me know if you have any questions about these. And now let's take a look at this chart for supply. Brooklyn, a little differently than Manhattan, the inventory is kind of going sideways, and we're not seeing that same true decline in inventory as we're seeing in Manhattan. That just could be a moment in time, but something to be watching, certainly. We do see that the weekly new listings are declining, and that is in line with the seasonal patterns. And the contract signed moved down a little bit in Brooklyn, and we know we have some quiet weeks ahead with the holidays. Any questions, please post them below. I'm happy to answer any questions about things in this report, or if you just have questions about what's going on in the market and you would like to have more information, feel free to reach out to me. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you find this kind of information helpful to you. And as always, feel free to share these reports with anyone you feel they might benefit. Okay, that is it for Brooklyn, and that is it for this week's look at the state of the New York City real estate market. I'll be back next week with the latest news about what's happening in the luxury market, the Manhattan market, and the Brooklyn market. In the meantime, take care.